Happy Workers' Day to every worker in Nigeria, especially the government worker. Here on Root Cause on Rootstv Nigeria, we are evaluating the right of the Nigerian worker, especially with regards to the 30,000 naira new minimum wage. Well, some may be very happy about that. Others are wondering, is that what the Nigerian worker needs? And that's exactly what we are discussing right here on the show. My name is Gloria Oji Emodi. And I have right here in the studio with me, all the way from Lagos, Kolawole Oluwadare from Seraph. Welcome.
Yeah, good afternoon. Welcome.
And we have Audu Liberty, who is from the Clean Foundation. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, now we have had this conversation from various angles. We've talked to workers, we've talked to the leadership. Now we want to talk to CSOs who have been monitoring, both of you who've been monitoring this whole wage war and, of course, looking and talking to the Nigerian worker. First of all, Kola, what are your thoughts about the 30,000 naira minimum wage? Should they be celebrating or should they be worried about what happens next?
That question, the answer may be better put in a context. But within the Nigerian context, I would say, given the history and what led to the recent approval of the new minimum wage, it's not so much cause for celebration.
Why would you say that?
Because we're all aware of the economic situation we have in the country, and given the history of the wage from 18,000 a few years back.
2010, as a matter of fact.
And then looking at the initial demand, I think it's 57,200.
It started from 65, then to 56.
And then there are other problems of the actual implementation, which I'm sure even the president is aware of. The AGF had to come out recently to give directives as to the implementation. And then the governors are there. So the implementation may be another problem of this one entirely. So I think it's too soon to celebrate.
Too soon to celebrate?
I don't know, when people tell me about 30,000 minimum wage, I don't understand what they mean. I don't understand what that means. Of course, I expect the workers to be talking about housing. I expect them to be talking about education. And I expect them to be talking about health. Of course, if you give one 30,000 naira as a minimum wage, as we speak today, a bag of rice in this country, either foreign or local, is about 15,000.
15 to 18,000 foreign local.
So as we speak today, there are no more public primary schools. I don't know if you're aware. Where are the public primary schools? And I used to tell people that the last school fees I paid then in government secondary school was 180 naira. That was the last school fees I paid in secondary school. So today, I remember that my son, he pay as far as 30 to 35,000 naira every month. That's even a school of the masses. So by the time you pay somebody 30,000, what have we done? That's the question. And the question is, we must begin to talk in terms of income, because 30,000 naira does not equate income, because any money you collect and you do not have income to save, you don't have income. That's not even enough expenditure. Now you talk in terms of if you live somewhere in Cuba, for instance, and you come to work every day, and you pay 100 naira to come to work and 100 naira to go back to your house. At the end of the month, calculate, you've spent almost 20,000, if not 18,000 for transport. You're not talking about feeding. And when you multiply, for instance, you live in a house of 300,000 with your family, or at least 150,000 or 200,000. When you multiply 200,000, when you divide 200,000 by 24 months, right, then you discover how much is left, how much you pay every month. And if you go to hospitals, there are no medicine. Of course, I've been able to investigate some hospitals.
And we don't even have insurance. Let's not forget. We don't have, the NHIS is problematic. So even if there was any sort of insurance, maybe it would be a cushion. A lot of us are paying out of pocket when we go to the hospital. So that's extra cost.
So what's this conversation about 30,000? What's the conversation about 30,000?
And think about it. It took so many months of wrangling between labor and government to get to 30,000 naira. In as much as they were part of various groups, their representatives were part of the tripartite committee, but you know, when you come down to the private sector, at the end of the day, who's holding who accountable? Some people still pay 10,000 naira to their staff. How can the private sector, you know, advocate at least on the individual level, how they can advocate to be a part of this 30,000 naira, hopefully, starting with you, Liberty, and then we'll round up with you.
I think the law is very clear. So long as you hire anybody, you are bound to pay the person 30,000. The law is very clear. So it's not a legislation that's just all about those who work in a public sector. So this is a nation.
So if a young man goes for a job interview and they offer him anything less than 30,000, he should say thank you very much. A graduate. Let's start with a graduate.
No, you can't track them to court because
for offering you less than 30,000.
If you take the job and you can report them. The Nigerian Labour Union has to do the job. Because what that means is that if you decide to hire anybody, the minimum you should pay the person should be 1,000. That's what the law says.
I see. Interesting. You agree?
But the law, the new one Buhari just signed, specifies that it doesn't apply if your staff is less than 25.
Exactly.
Those laws have those
clauses.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But in the real sense, in the private sector is a bit less regulated, and I would agree with you. Even in our engagements, there is less focus on the private sector. So I agree with you. It's going to be a bit of a challenge, but the court option is always there.
Interesting. A big thank you to you, Kola, for taking our time to talk to us, and Liberty, thank you so much for being right here. Thanks talk to us wherever you are as you watch this video. If you're a worker or you have a friend or family member who's a worker, what are your major concerns about this 30,000 naira minimum wage? Share them on the comment section of this video. My name is Gloria Oje Emode, and you're watching Rootstv Nigeria.